Greetings friends. In the past videos, we were talking a little about what energy and alchemy really are, about the energetic charges that exist in this world and their correspondence with the fundamental alchemical laws. We talked about the existing elements and how they store energy in large quantities. Now, in this new video, we will talk about something very impressive and mysterious related to rocks, to energy, to alchemy, and to energetic charges, about radiation and what it really is, and the many alchemical secrets that it hides. Let's start. From the chemical point of view, all elements are reactive. That is, they react with something. Tell me, have you ever wondered why this channel is called like that? Well, it turns out that all elements are chemical reactives. Alchemical, I would say. Everything in this world is reactive. The point is to find what each thing is reactive with. Try through different transformation and union processes. That's alchemy. All that they say are physical and chemical phenomena. Unexplained processes that we use and that conforms the energy as a result. A consequence. And the procedure, or recipe, is the knowledge. But why are some elements called radioactive? That is a great secret, and it has the same reactive principles. A great stored energy that is emanating from the materials in high or low extent. They are very rare materials that, when they unite and heat up, they react, releasing a large amount of that stored energy. Thus, having cycles of thousands of years, for that said energy is exhausted in them. So it's continuously disintegrated, having its way into both sides. Just like all the energy matter. This in itself is something incredible. Let's notice how these materials can contain so much energy, more than the other energetic matter. To explain this, we must first know a concept that in geology is called rare earths. Its very name indicates it. They are very unique elements that are sold at a very good price due to their rarity and their techno-alchemical applications. These rare earths can cause nuclear alchemical reactions. Here an example of this. An ancient reactor in Africa. One that is theorized to have undergone natural fission. This is complicated and involves a lot of factors. And because of that, it's amazing that even a nuclear reactor has been made primordially by nature. I leave the link of the article in the description so you can read it later. But from this, we can see that nuclear energy is also alchemy, as mixing energetic matters that cause reactions. Reactions that are reactive between them. Being radiation as a natural process that occurs in the deep layers of the lower realm, generating, in its transformations, the negative energy that we already talked about, and that is also a secret. Mostly all that we are revealing are greatest secrets. But then, what is radiation? First, we must understand something very important, and that they do not teach you if you do not specialize in the field of photoconductivity. And it's the following. The sun emits all the radiation of the electromagnetic spectrum, from infrared to ultraviolet, as well as all the visible light that exists. This is called radiant energy. Radiant, like radiation. In this way, the sun irradiates a lot of radioactive energy. But not all solar radiation reaches the Earth's surface. That's because ultraviolet waves are shorter and are absorbed by the gaseous elements in the atmosphere, mainly ozone. Do you remember the alchemical cycles? Well, this is true at all levels. For this, we can say that in general, the atmosphere is in a state of ionic equilibrium. But what are ions? In the last video, we talked a bit about ionization, and how this is the process of receiving positive or negative charges, seeking balance. An atom is said to be in equilibrium when the number of protons and electrons is the same. An equilibrium between good and evil. When the atom loses or gains electrons, it loses its balance and becomes an ion. The ion can have a positive charge if it has lost electrons, or negative charge if it earned them. Do you see it? Same alchemical laws. That's why we also can get ionized through both sides. Cause not only atoms can be in that ionized state. The highest energy radiations of the electromagnetic spectrum are those of highest amplitude and shortest wavelength, the so-called ionizing radiations. That is, when they have enough energy to rip electrons from the atoms on which they interact or collide. So, all energy are radiations, but some of them don't have enough power to harm us. That's the non-ionizing radiations. They are those that do not have enough energy to remove an electron from the atom. That is, they are not capable of producing ionizations, so are relatively harmless. In this way, all energy is electromagnetic radiation. Radiation generated by power lines or by static electric fields, which also respond to those positive and negative charges. The energy generated by electrical and magnetic devices, such as microwaves or radio frequency waves, used by radio stations and in the telecommunications area. The optical radiations are what we call infrared rays, also the visible light, and the ultraviolet radiation rays. All are just different energy vibration frequencies of that same radiant energy. Different purities and different intensities. Same as all. It's incredible. Everything I tell you about alchemy is real, and you can inherently corroborate it within any scientific article that talks about these topics. About applied science and energy research. Cause, as we said, everything is based and sustained on the original alchemical laws. Cause all energy that exists has come from the sun. All the energy stored in this world by its beings. But I will explain it scientifically first, so you can see that it's the same, and how they minimize its majestic greatness. So, science tells us that there is radioactivity emanating from the sun. Science also confirms that positive ions are constantly being formed as a result of the sun's natural radioactivity that emanates from it. When this radiation reacts with ozone, the neutral or equilibrium atoms of ozone absorb it, cause they are being bombarded by gamma and ultraviolet radiation, losing electrons and becoming positive ions. So, again, a reactive reaction. The neutral needs to absorb those energies to define their path. Something goes down, and something goes up. Do you see how they are also purified by their alchemical energetic interaction? So then, the atmosphere upper layer is charged with positive ions. When the positive ions are excessive, they are constantly neutralized by the negative ions of the layer below. The oxygen and CO2 and a gas called radon, which emanates from all the rocks in this world and is slightly radioactive. This gas is produced by the decomposition of the rock itself, of the uranium that all rocks has inside, in very low quantity of course. But all the rock in this world has a small amount of natural uranium. Enriched uranium is the result of alchemical purification, this being the main fuel used in nuclear reactors. Uranium comes from the god Uranus, the first deity, as I explained in this past video. The primordial god of water. It's not a coincidence that they have named this element that way. Many scientists consider feasible the idea that the world itself creates nuclear reactions within itself, same which transform and give rise to all the other negative elements and their original charge. Those tiny fragments. The purification is to concentrate that fragments. Get rid of the other energetic matter, usually by melting the rock. The same way, natural radiation mixtures creates the molten uranium and its natural purification by the movements of extrusion and contraction of the ocean floor, as well as its expansion. All this conjuncts the necessary reactives for the nuclear radioactive reaction. In this way, what we know as radiation is also an energetic alchemical process. The mixture of ionizing charges and stored energies ready to generate geoalchemical transformations, transmutations, not only in the ecosystem, but also in us, in all beings. The radiation in this stratum where we live is present in everything in very low quantities, as if it were a primal energy, one that is slowly leaving, and is essential to promote those changes and transformations processes of matter, their purifications and disintegration. the cycles of balance, and their energetic exchanges. All these radioactive processes are the ones that generates the dynamic equilibrium in the world. Not only in the ground, but also in sky. Because the concentration of ions in the atmosphere is always kept in constant equilibrium or balance. Thus, fulfilling the ancestral alchemical law. So, radiation is then something natural. The whole animals and human beings lives in a world full of natural radioactivity. Receiving radiation from the sun, from the upper planes, and as radioactive radon from the earth. Even fruits possess radiation in extremely small amounts. Radiation absorbed from the sun. In your bones too. There is polonium and radium. In your muscles, carbon and potassium, also radioactive. And in your lungs, noble gases, helium and tritium, also radioactive. On top of a mountain, or traveling in an airplane, more solar radiation is received than at sea level. For example, air crews spend much of their lives at altitudes where the sun's radiation is 20 times higher than on the ground. In fact, 58% of the radiation dose received by an average individual comes from the sun and food. For all this and more, our body has its natural radioactivity. Potassium-40 in particular is the main source of internal radiation. Seafood is the element that concentrates the most natural radiation in such a way that a person who usually eats many marine animals can receive up to 45% more radiation than the average population. That, without counting the contamination produced by nuclear explosions in reactors, such as Fukushima. These reactors work with a very rare and ancient element called uranium. It is found in nature as rocks, exhaled by volcanoes, or in deep underground mines. This natural element is very old, and it is observed that in the most geologically older rocks, the uranium concentration is higher than in younger uranium rocks. Today we know that around 40% of the background radiation we receive annually comes from the minerals that surround us, from radon, and from technological electromagnetic radiation with which we are irradiated daily. Uranium is almost as hard as steel and is denser than lead. Fulfilling the alchemical law of density, thus being a poor conductor of electricity. In a previous video I told you about diamonds, about its conductivity and its purity, about the ancestral energy that they carry inside. However, official science tells us that diamond is dielectric, that is to say, that it's an insulator, and that it does not allow electricity to circulate well. Some of you were quick to say that I was wrong. However, now I will present you some scientific news that confirms what I say. First, in 2003, Japanese network NTT reported that it had built a diamond semiconductor device. Then, in 2004, this article was published describing the superconducting properties of diamond after irradiating it with boron. Recently, in 2017, there was a discovery that blue diamonds are natural semiconductors. After being equally irradiated with boron and lowered its temperature to -273 degrees Celsius, they become superconductors. In addition, specialized scientists from India and Israel manufactured very thin sheets of diamond by firing laser pulses at them with different amplitude waves. A technique known as Raman spectroscopy, they managed to measure the unique energy states in the material to see how the energetic states are affected by impurities. This said by themselves, which in other words means that they seek to read the very energy that the material stores. Another example of this is that a few years ago, news appeared about some diamond batteries devised by the University of Bristol that, according to some media, could revolutionize the energy paradigm. Some even spoke of a new era of diamonds in clean energy production. Let us remember that an electric current is nothing more than a flow of positive electrons flow towards the negative ones, facing and generating energy in their battle. Normal batteries contain inside a material with many negative electrons from one side and a positive charge on the other. As soon as the two terminals are joined by a circuit, electrons begin to flow from one side to the other, facing each other and thus giving rise to an electric current. But diamond batteries do not use this same principle. There are no such two materials with opposite electrical charge to stimulate the circulation of electrons from one place to another. Instead, they generate an electrical current through the emanation of radioactivity. This is a great secret, one that you can only corroborate by studying nuclear physics. In order to know about the radioactive carbon cycle, the most abundant element, and of which all life is composed. It's a great topic and very extensive, very complex. For this reason, we will dedicate a full video to it in the future. Today I will only tell you that of the 3 natural isotopes of carbon existing in nature, only carbon-14 is always unstable. So it's emitting its radiation while disintegrating. We all are surrounded by atoms that emit a small bit of radiation, even in elements that are not normally radioactive. This is because a fraction of the atoms of many elements that we think of as stable, such as carbon or potassium, are actually unstable, so that, from time to time, some of them get rid of some of the particles that they contain. Radon is an exact of this, produced from the natural radioactive decay of uranium, which is naturally present in very low amounts in all soils and rocks. Radon can also be present in water, since it easily emanates from all the rocks, including those on the ocean floor. That's how radon passes into oxygen, where it disintegrates when it reaches the surface of the water, emitting tiny and totally natural radioactive particles that charge the seas with energy. Returning to the cycle of alchemical energy. But then, what is the unnatural radiation, and why is it harmful? Well, the most dangerous radiation is which comes from the human alchemy, since it is not in equilibrium with nature. The so of, say, malignant radiation comes from the exponentiation or purification of natural uranium, removing impurities such as lead to obtaining the so-called enriched uranium. Later, it is bombarded with high-speed deuterons, which is more energy, to obtaining what is called neptunium. a very reactive and radioactive element, and the fifth densest element known. Later, it could be purified a little more to get what is called plutonium, which is currently used as fuel in nuclear reactors. That reaction is what releases the radioactive energy. Radiation, as we are told, is also a phenomenon. Again, that word, for not to tell us about it. Radiation is that great primordial energy, stored and contained in that ancestral precious stone. In the metal, purified from it. Both energy charges are contained and in continuous struggle, releasing stored alchemical energy as particles that shoot out of its core in all directions. These are the tiny energetical projectiles that we call nuclear radiation. Projectiles that goes through the skin, staying there, and irradiating gamma rays from their unstable atoms, causing horrible burns and destruction at cellular level. In this way, many elements that we do not commonly associate with radioactivity can get radioactive. This is because each element in the periodic table has several isotopes within. Isotopes that can absorb huge amounts of this exceeded energy. For this reason, some of these combinations result to be highly unstable and therefore radioactive. This brings us back to diamonds. Diamonds are made of carbon atoms arranged in a very specific structure. The most abundant isotope of carbon is carbon-12. This means that it has 12 particles in its nucleus, 6 protons and 6 neutrons. These carbon-12 nucleus are perfectly stable, which is why most of the carbon around us is almost non-radioactive until it decays into radon, slightly increasing its radioactive rays to beta. For this reason, diamonds have the ability to generate electrical currents when beta radiation strikes them. This is because the electrons that are fired by this radiation collide with the electrons of the diamond structure as they pass through it. The surrounding electrons are attracted to the spaces that have been left empty, and in this way, the necessary tenacity is completed to induce an electric current and thus turn the diamond into a superconductor and energy superstorage capacitor. Having said that, it turns out that the great advantage of diamond batteries would be their extremely long life. It would take 5,730 years to exhaust only half of its charge. Yes, a battery that lasts thousands of years. Never again you would need to buy batteries or charge your phone or your computer. There could even supply a worldwide unlimited electric power, running efficiently for 10,000 years, with only diamonds and alchemy. What's the reason then for these batteries won't be commercialized? Well, first of all, it requires big-sized diamonds, which are extremely rare and valuable. There are very few in the world of an appropriate size to make this a reality. And ordinary people could not afford to use these technologies based on such expensive materials. And producing synthetic diamonds is not very profitable either. For this, I have been able to find the price of a 1-carat diamond, which is approximately $1,000. However, the price of a single 2-carat stone is much higher than the price of 2 1-carat stones due to the rarity of the larger stones. So a diamond big enough for our battery would cost us at least $800,000. Or even more. And it would be extremely difficult to obtain it with a high degree of purity. The cost of manufacturing said diamond synthetically is also not far in comparison. Even the price of carbon-14 itself is quite high. However, the satisfactory results in laboratory tests open up a range of possibilities for this technology to be perfected and reinvented. It must be further purified and economized in order to be used for our daily life. This innovative method to produce energy with diamonds as superconductors was presented at the Cabot Institute's annual conference. According to Tom Scott, Professor of Materials at the University of Bristol and member of the Cabot Institute, and I quote, "When using radioactive materials, the long-term problem was the nuclear waste produced. Now, by encapsulating radioactive materials inside a diamond and converting it into a nuclear battery, a long-term supply of clean energy is created without radioactive waste and its harmful effects on health." However, the University of Bristol has not released more information or technical specifications of this invention, falling in oblivion. Obviously, a clean battery that lasts 10,000 years would not suit the energy monopolies. In this way, we can understand how crystals are the purest form in terms of energy storage. They all hold incredible alchemical secrets. Secrets in the form of rare reactives with tremendous properties. Some that could even increase life and heal. We will talk about all this so impressive in a second part. The great mystery of gems and what they really are, as well as the ancient powers that they unleash. Very real powers, and that today we consider them as fiction. This is not an entertainment channel, friends. This is a channel for all those who already know all the lies to which we are subjected, and who seek to know what lies beyond. What to do with all this knowledge? What to do with the truth? Educate for the future. So that children understand the majesty of the place where they live, and the responsibility they have, and that we have, towards this world. For the future of our children's descendants. If we don't pass on this information, it will be lost again, like in previous decades. Do you think these channels will be here forever? It is our duty to make people see that money is only paper, and that they have us enslaved. Doped for not to question. So that we keep educating our children as slaves. Let's educate for the future. It is our only weapon. We speak the truth, and we will be heard. You just have to wake up from the great deception. The system does not work. Time to get out. Reactive Factory Project.